September 1943. The sky over Italy was a canvas painted in desperation. The once proud Regia Aeronautica, shattered by relentless Allied bombing and the political turmoil of the armistice, now limped on, its dwindling resources tied to the grim lifeline of the German Luftwaffe. What remained of the Axis air defense clung to the southern foothills, flying fighters like the Machi C-205 Veltro, beautiful, lethal at low altitude, but utterly outmatched in the high, cold war of the stratosphere. It was an air war measured in ounces of thrust and meters of altitude. The Messerschmitts and Machis strained, battling flying fortresses and liberators at 25,000 feet, the upper limit of tactical dogfighting. The engineers and pilots of the Axis knew these bombers were the vanguard of an unstoppable industrial force. But what happened next was a shattering anomaly, a violation of the laws of physics as they knew them. November 14th, 1943, Central Italy. The weather was a gift to the Allies, thick, oppressive cloud cover that muffled the sound of the approaching formations. But through a momentary tear in the stratocumulus, a young Luftwaffe spotter, Unteroffizier Klaus Richter, reported something utterly new. Not the familiar silver teardrop of a B-17. This was larger, sleeker, a ghost moving at an impossible speed. Target designated unknown heavy bomber class, observed 10,000 meters, speed estimated at 600 kilometers per hour. Identification: negative. Call sign: Silver Whale. The Silver Whale, the B-29 Superfortress. A machine meant for the distant Pacific theater, yet somehow, catastrophically, a lone reconnaissance variant had strayed. Perhaps engine failure, perhaps a navigation error over the contested Mediterranean. But it was here, and it was descending, trailing a plume of smoke like a wounded leviathan. The Germans scrambled their finest high-altitude interceptors, a handful of Focke-Wulf 190 D9s, but it was too late. The bomber, crippled, dropped below 5,000 meters and crash-landed in a heavily wooded, snow-dusted valley near the town of Frosinone. The Allied crew, mostly captured or perished, became an immediate footnote. The true prize lay in the wreckage. An entire section of the Axis technological establishment was about to confront its own obsolescence. The site was immediately sealed by the Wehrmacht. The engineers who arrived, a mix of pragmatic German technologists and the passionate, design-focused minds of the surviving Regia Aeronautica staff, were met not with a conventional wreck, but a vision of the future. The sheer scale was overwhelming. 30 meters long, a 43-meter wingspan. Everything was riveted, flush and smooth, an aerodynamic marvel that defied the traditional angular European designs. Professor Alessandro Conti, a veteran of the Caproni Design Bureau, wrote in his private journal of that day, "We walked around it in silence. It was a cathedral of aluminum. Our Piaggio P108 was large, yes, but this had the lines of a rocket. The first thing one noticed was not the size but the smooth skin. Where were the gunners, the bubbles? Only small, sinister blisters along the fuselage. The answer lay in the revolutionary remote-controlled fire control system, operated from sealed, pressurized cabins. The B-29 was designed to fly so high that the enemy would literally suffocate before they could reach it, defended by a network of synchronized machine guns firing with a precision unknown to the Axis. The true terror, however, was in the massive engines. The Wright R-3350 duplex Cyclone, twin-row 18-cylinder radials. At 2,200 horsepower each, they were nearly double the output of the standard German engines. This was not just a different airplane, it was a different philosophy of power. This captured beast, this silver whale lying crippled in the Italian snow, represented a technological chasm the Axis could not bridge. They had finally grasped the sheer, terrifying scale of American industrial and engineering superiority. Their desperation now fueled a secret project, to understand, to copy, and perhaps to survive. This machine was a warning, and the engineers who first laid eyes upon it knew with a chilling certainty that the war they thought they were fighting was already over. The fate of the Axis hung in the balance, a secret locked within the superfortress's scorched fuselage. To follow the engineers' dramatic quest to unlock this mystery, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. You don't want to miss a moment of the next chapter, the engine room. The valley near Frosinone became a clandestine workshop, guarded by SS detachments. This was Operation Pandora, a desperate effort sanctioned by High Command in Berlin. The objective: extract the engine, the pressurized section, and the revolutionary sighting apparatus for immediate study at the Caproni facilities in northern Italy under heavy German supervision. The immediate hurdle was the power plant, 4 Wright R3350 duplex cyclone engines. Transporting them was an industrial operation in itself. Each engine, a complex assembly of 18 cylinders producing over 2,200 horsepower, was a monument to American manufacturing might. The Italian engineers, led by the pragmatic Dr. Vittorio Sesto, saw not a machine, but a statement of infinite resources. Perspective of Italian engineer, Dr. Sesto. In a decrypted report to the German RLM, Reich Air Ministry, Dr. Sesto lamented, "Our engines, like the excellent Daimler-Benz DB605, are marvels of precision, yes, but they require a level of meticulous artisanal care. The duplex Cyclone is different. It is brutally powerful, designed for long life at high output, and built with a speed and quantity we can only dream of. The castings, the tolerances. It is a mass-produced precision instrument." The true mystery lay in how the R3350 handled heat. High-output radials were notorious for overheating. The American solution was a marvel of cooling and metallurgy, sophisticated cowl flaps, advanced internal baffling, and above all, the turbo supercharger. The B-29 did not simply use a supercharger, it used a General Electric turbo supercharger, a massive, turbine-driven compressor that recovered energy from the exhaust gases. This was the secret to its altitude performance. At 30,000 feet, where the air pressure was less than one-third that at sea level, the B-29's engines maintained near sea-level performance. The Axis had their own turbo superchargers, but they were temperamental, heavy, and often failed violently. The American model was a blueprint for reliable, sustained high-altitude flight. Oberingenieur Hans Kroll, a German specialist from Junkers, was tasked with measuring the output. Using captured American 100-octane fuel, they rigged a test stand within the Caproni hangar. The first run was an event of dread and fascination. Perspective of German engineer, Hans Kroll. The noise, Kroll later recalled, was not like our engines. Our Jumos roared, they sounded angry. The duplex Cyclone was a deep, sustained, resonating thunder. When we reached maximum manifold pressure, the vibration was so intense the floor shook. The needle on the brake dynamometer climbed and climbed. When the indicator finally registered the true power, Sesto turned to me, his face pale. He simply shook his head and whispered, "We are fighting an ocean of power, Hans. Not an air force, but an industry." The engine's internal components were equally baffling. They found advanced lead-bronze bearings, precision-forged steel connecting rods, and a sheer quantity of high-quality aluminum that was a national strategic asset in the US, but a resource scarcity nightmare for the Axis. Even the spark plugs were superior, designed to resist the corrosive effects of the high-octane fuels for hundreds of operational hours. This engine was not built for a desperate short-term struggle. It was built for endless, strategic dominance. Its longevity meant less maintenance, fewer aircraft on the ground, and more bombs in the air. The Italian engineers, who often had to rebuild their engine blocks after just 50 operational hours, recognized the terrifying implication of this durability. The second great mystery was the fuselage. They attempted to mimic the high-tolerance flush riveting, a technique critical for reducing drag at high speeds. The results were disastrous. Their aluminum alloys were too brittle, their tooling not precise enough. The B-29's structure was designed with computer-like precision, optimized to support enormous bomb loads at unprecedented altitudes. This was not a skill that could be copied quickly. It was a decade of sustained investment in metallurgical science and automated manufacturing. The engineers had confirmed their worst fear. It wasn't just that the American machine was better. It was that the industrial base, the raw materials and the engineering philosophy behind it, were operating on an entirely different scale. This captured engine did more than just reveal American power. It ignited a profound sense of technological despair that spread like a chill through the Axis design bureaus. The superfortress was not merely a weapon, It was the physical proof of inevitable defeat. The true genius of the B-29 lay not in its power, but in its ability to harness the power of the high-altitude void. The engineers next turned their focus to the pressurized crew section, the superfortress's technological shield, against the lethal environment of the stratosphere. In 1943, Axis bombers flew unpressurized. Crews wore heavy, bulky oxygen masks, freezing in temperatures that routinely dropped to 50 degrees Celsius. The sheer physical toll limited mission times and crew effectiveness. Frostbite and crippling fatigue were often more dangerous than enemy fighters. The B-29 offered a different reality. The cockpit, forward compartment, and aft gunner's station were connected by a small tunnel, sealed and maintained at a comfortable shirt-sleeve altitude of approximately 8,000 feet, even while the bomber cruised at over 30,000 feet. This was achieved through a series of complex supercharger-driven compressors and airtight bulkheads. Perspective of German scientist Dr. Erich Koch, a German specialist in high-altitude physiology, examined the system. His report to the RLM was stark. This is a radical advance in human factors engineering. It transforms the crew compartment from an icebox requiring full physical defense to an office. Crews are warm, lucid, and do not need to fight hypoxia or extreme cold. Our pilots are physically compromised before the interception even begins. The Americans are fresh. The human element was the ultimate strategic advantage. A comfortable crew was an effective crew. But the technological superiority extended directly into the aircraft's ability to defend itself. This was the moment the Axis engineers realized the B-29 was virtually uninterceptable. They dismantled the General Electric Central Fire Control System, CFCS. This was the crowning jewel of the B-29's defense. Instead of relying on human eyes and mechanical sights in freezing, vibrating turrets, the CFCS used a network of periscopic sighting stations. The gunner simply tracked the target through a computerized sight. A sophisticated analog calculator, a mechanical brain, instantly accounted for range, wind speed, the bomber's speed, and, crucially, the deflection required to hit a moving fighter. The German pilot's tactic against American bombers was to exploit the weaknesses of the manual ball turrets, attacking from sharp angles. The CFCS rendered these tactics obsolete. The system could fire guns in any turret that had a clear line of fire, controlled by any of the 5 fire control stations. The bomber was encased in a seamless, computerized shell of interlocking fire. Imagine the terror of a Messerschmitt Bf 109 pilot, Lieutenant Ernst Vogel, who had faced the system in the Pacific and was now briefing the engineers. It was like fighting a porcupine. From whatever angle I approached, guns would open up. Not just one turret, but 3, 4, all synchronized. It wasn't human. It was precise, terrifying geometry. Our own pilots had no chance to calculate that kind of lead in a high-speed pass. The Axis engineers stared at the heart of the system, a complex gearbox of rotating dials, gears, and electrical circuits. It was beautiful, but impossibly complex to reverse engineer in a collapsing wartime economy. It required a level of dedicated, mass-produced precision tooling that was simply beyond them. The engineers' initial hope of copying the aircraft gave way to a chilling, unified conclusion. They could not beat this machine. They could not build it. The B-29 represented a quantum leap, a glimpse into a future of total aerial domination that the Axis had forfeited by prioritizing tactical victory over strategic industrial preparation. The airframe and the systems were a perfect, terrifying synergy. The only option left was to devise a last-ditch counter-tactic, a strategic plan that might just neutralize the American technological behemoth. The knowledge extracted from the superfortress wreck, catalogued and microfilmed under intense German pressure, was now feeding the deepest recesses of the Luftwaffe High Command. The goal shifted from replication to counteraction. How do you kill an aircraft that flies higher, faster, and defends itself more accurately than anything you possess? The answer, the Germans concluded, was to meet power with radically superior power, and altitude with even greater altitude. They accelerated 2 key projects: the high-altitude jet fighter Messerschmitt Me 262HG, high-speed variant, and the terrifying rocket-powered interceptor, the Messerschmitt Me 163 Comet. The Me-262 HG-3, with its swept wings and powerful Jumo 004H engines, was theoretically capable of reaching the B-29's cruising altitude and speed. But it remained a drawing board dream, plagued by engine failures and a catastrophic lack of strategic materials, particularly nickel and cobalt for its turbine blades. The American industrial process meant a ready supply of durable alloys. The German artisan process meant constant crippling shortages. The Me-163 Comet offered a more immediate, if suicidal, solution. A rocket-propelled interceptor that could achieve a rate of climb of 16,000 feet per minute. It could reach B-29 altitude in a fraction of the time. The Italian engineers, including Dr. Sesto, saw the inherent flaw: speed without endurance. Perspective of Italian engineer Dr. Sesto on Comet. "We gave them a rocket," Dr. Sesto observed bitterly. "A magnificent rocket. But once it reached the bomber's altitude, it had less than 3 minutes of fuel. 3 minutes to make one pass, fire all its ammunition, and then glide down, a helpless glider, a perfect target." The B-29 was built for 4,000 miles of endurance. Our counter was built for a suicidal dash. It was the epitome of our strategic failure. The most promising counter-tactic was the development of heavy-caliber weapons designed to destroy the B-29's enormous airframe and powerful R-3350 engines. They adapted the R-4M rocket, an unguided aerial weapon with a devastating proximity fuse, designed to fire in mass volleys from their jet fighters. One hit, and the superfortress was doomed. The test. In early 1944, a tactical trial was arranged in a secure testing range. A captured B-17 Flying Fortress, the closest analogue available, was flown by a volunteer Luftwaffe crew at high altitude. A squadron of FW-190s, armed with the new R-4M rockets, attempted the mass interception tactic. The test was a catastrophic failure. The B-17, even with its lower ceiling and slower speed, proved notoriously difficult to hit with the unguided rockets in a high-speed head-on pass. The B-29 was not only faster and higher, but its CFCS would have detected the incoming fighters earlier and opened fire with a density and accuracy the German pilots had never trained to face. The engineers realized that the core problem was not the weapon, but the platform. The German fighters could not match the B-29's sustained performance and defensive integration. The Superfortress was not just a bomber. It was a self-contained high-altitude ecosystem, defended by a computer and powered by a resource stream the Axis could not conceive. The conclusion was undeniable. There was no successful tactical or technological counter that could be mass-produced within the remaining time of the war. The captured superfortress, the Silver Whale, had forced the Axis to confront a truth more devastating than any bombing raid. The Americans were playing an entirely different game, a strategic industrial war of scale and sustained technological superiority. The engineers' failed counterstrike was not just a military setback, it was the final, devastating admission of technological defeat. By mid-1944, the clandestine work at the Caproni facilities was drawing to a desperate close. The superfortress wreckage and its extracted components, the pressurized fuselage panels, the dissected R-3350 engine, the complex gearboxes of the CFCS, were officially designated a lost cause for direct replication. The relentless Allied advance up the Italian boot, compounded by the strategic collapse of the German industrial heartland under the sheer weight of conventional Allied bombing, meant the research had become a grim academic exercise in disaster prediction. The dream of an Axis superfortress, a technological equalizer, was dead. The historical irony was brutal, almost unbearable. The Axis engineers, who had stood in awe of the B-29's sheer power and catalogued its thousand-fold superiorities, would soon witness its deadly potential realized on a scale that eclipsed all imagination. While their entire focus in Europe had been a desperate scramble for tactical survival, how to intercept and destroy the machine, the Americans were already positioning it to end the war, thousands of miles away, in the distant Pacific. The superfortress was engineered for one thing above all else: strategic reach and payload delivery. With a combat radius extending beyond 1,500 miles, it could project devastating American power deep into the heart of the Japanese Empire, bypassing heavily fortified island defenses, cruising effortlessly above all but the most advanced Japanese interceptors and carrying the largest conventional bomb payload in history. This reach, this capacity for sustained deep-strike warfare, was the strategic vision the Axis, obsessed with tactical victories, had fatally ignored. The technological gulf that Italian and German engineers discovered in the snow near Frosinone was no longer an abstract measurement of horsepower or altitude. It was now being measured in megatons. The very components that had baffled them, the leak-proof, high-tolerance pressurized cabin, the relentlessly durable R-3350 duplex cyclone engine, the automated advanced avionics, all the pieces of the technological puzzle they couldn't solve, converged on a single point in history, culminating over the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The B-29 was thus transformed from merely a bomber. It became the inaugural delivery vehicle of a new, terrifying geopolitical era. The true price of the B-29's technology was not calculated in dollars, but in the lost opportunities of Axis engineers. They possessed brilliant minds, the designers of the Me-262 jet fighter, the V-2 rocket, the revolutionary He-178. But their genius was compartmentalized, starved of resources, and forced to chase tactical miracles rather than industrial supremacy. The B-29 represented the total integration of resources, technology, and strategic patience. Years after the war, in a series of deeply revealing correspondences with former colleagues across the now divided Europe, Dr. Vittorio Sesto reflected on the impact of the superfortress on his generation of engineers. Sesto: "We wasted our genius on complex designs and brilliant tactics. We sought the perfect artisanal machine. The Americans did the opposite. They invested in reliability, in quantity, and in the well-being of the crew. They didn't build one perfect engine. They built 10,000 perfect engines, all identical, all durable. The B-29 taught us that in a modern war, the foundry and the assembly line, the sheer, unglamorous power of industrial capacity, are the only truly decisive weapons." The war was lost not on the battlefield but in the factory floor. The physical remnants of the captured B-29 components vanished into the historical fog, likely destroyed by retreating German demolition squads to prevent their capture, or seized by Allied intelligence teams eager to recover the evidence. But the true legacy of the Silver Whale was not in the hardware, it was in the knowledge it imparted, the cold, hard data of technological disparity. The engineers who witnessed that power were irrevocably changed. They carried the blueprint of that technological chasm into the post-war world, contributing significantly to the reconstruction of industries and the rebuilding of air forces in a new era. The superfortress had established the definitive standard, the unyielding benchmark for what a world power could achieve, setting the stage for the Cold War arms race. From the deep, guttural, sustained thunder of the duplex cyclone engines to the inhuman, calculated precision of the central fire control system, the B-29 was the ultimate, uncompromising expression of the American commitment to overwhelming, total superiority. It was the ghost of Rome that had crash-landed onto the Italian plains, not merely as an enemy aircraft to be fought, but as a chilling, definitive prophecy of the world to come. The superfortress was the machine that ended the war in the air, revealing in one catastrophic wreck the fundamental imbalance of power that dictated the ultimate outcome of the conflict. It was a technological monolith that forced the Axis to finally admit a truth far more terrifying than any bomb. They had been defeated by the future itself. The technological stories of World War II are endless, a constant stream of human drama and strategic brilliance, often hidden in the ruins of forgotten failures. If you want to delve deeper into the secret weapons and the untold engineering stories that shaped the course of history, make sure you subscribe to the channel and join our community of history experts.